My name is Kosky. I was born on the 5th of August 1946. My parents at the time lived in a tiny street called Heneage Street off of Brick Lane, right in the heart of the East End. The houses were all terraced houses and were occupied in the main by poor Jewish families. This was the time of a well-known landlord called Rahman, who had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses and flats. He did nothing to them, let them go in rack and ruin, but charged exorbitant rents for people to live in it. The street was a reasonably long street off of Brick Lane. At the top there was a little synagogue, and opposite was a brewery. There was certain dress manufacturers down the street, which the majority of the local women were employed in the fashion industry. In the street as well, I remember there was a milk company, and they had milk floats with horses, and the horses used to bring carts out with the milk in big urns and go up and down the street. I lived with my sister and my mum and dad in one of these terraced houses, and right behind the house was a light engineering company. So it was somewhat difficult living in those circumstances. My father was a gentleman barber. He had his own little barber shop in City Road. Unfortunately, he didn't have a great deal of education because he was forced to leave school at the age of 12 when he was younger in the early 1900s, because he had to go to work to earn money. Wanted to stay at home to look after myself and my sister, make sure she was there when we came home from school. So she became a machinist with a Singer sewing machine in our lounge, where she used to make up ladies' dresses. She was known as an outdoor machinist, one of the hundreds and thousands in the East End of women who wanted to work from home, and it was the main means of occupation. Luckily she did do that, because my father unfortunately didn't necessarily make a lot of money from his barber shop. Because of where we lived, there was no opportunities for young people to do anything. The only piece of grass that was anywhere near was at the end of the road, and it was a section of grass on a housing estate. And that's where we used to play football. But we could only play for so long before we smashed one of the windows on the ground floor, and therefore we weren't allowed to play for a period of time. But luckily, I was within 10 minutes walk of Brady Boys Club. I first joined Brady Boys Club, I think somewhere between the age of 3 and 4. There was a lady there who ran a nursery, and my mum took me to it because it was a Jewish nursery. So I was at the nursery for 2 or 3 years before I went to actual school. My school was in a street called Dill Street, which was 250 yards from Brady Club. So I had my primary school quite close to the club. Because I was Jewish, I left actually joining the club after the age of 5 or 6, because I had to learn my bar mitzvah, which meant I had to go to classes for 4 nights a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. And I only on occasions therefore went to the club. After I got bar mitzvahed, I rejoined the club. I applied and became a junior member, and then started playing football and doing other activities at the club. I became part of the social committee, was one of the committees that I worked on. The social committee was the committee set up by the senior member boys in the club and the girls in the club, and we arranged for the rock groups to come to the club on a Sunday night and play. We helped raise money for the club. Both my mother and father were very happy that I had somewhere to go. If I didn't have the club to go to, I would have ended up like most of the non-Jewish boys in the road who were smashing milk bottles on the corner, because unfortunately there was absolutely nothing to do. There was no other facilities, and as far as I don't recall too many non-Jewish youth clubs in the area, so they were very, very pleased that I went to Brady. Juniors in the club were between 13 and 16. Between 16 and 19 you were a senior, and 19 and above you could no longer be a member of the club, because at the age of 19 you had to leave. You became an old boy if you wanted to play old boy football, which I did for a time. So at the age of 13 I had to apply to join the club. At the time I think the club had a membership for boys of 250 boys and about 150 girls. I think the decision by the management at the time was the club couldn't take more than that sort of number at any one time. So they restricted membership. There was always a demand for membership, so you had to go before a committee. The committee was made up of the senior captain and members of his cabinet who ran the club from the members' point of view. And I had to go and stand before them, answer questions about why I wanted to join the club, what I was going to do at the club. A junior person had to do, from memory, 2 activities a week, and a senior had to do 1. If you didn't do the activities, and the club leader, Yogi Mayer, found out, he would call you in and say that if you're not partaking in what the club has to offer, there are a load of other boys that want to join. So everybody had to do an activity. I played football and I did volleyball. In fact, I did sometimes 3 or 4 activities, because I did snooker and I played table tennis. My main 2 activities were football and volleyball, which is 2 sports that I enjoyed. I then had to pay what they call subscriptions. From memory, what sticks in my mind is it was 5p a week, shilling a week. And when you walked through the club doors from Hanbury Street, there was a desk and somebody was on duty with your subs card and would ask for you, if you hadn't paid it, to pay up your 5p a week. And that's how I got back in, and I played junior football for 3 years. Then I played senior football between 16 and 19. And I was lucky enough at the age of 19 to be in, well, I played with most of the boys in the under 19, 18 for most of my time at the club. So I knew them and was lucky enough to be in a team that was at the best in Jewish football. We entered 5 competitions: the London five-a-side, the AJY five-a-side, the AJY Cup, the AJY League, and the most prestigious thing was what they called the Invitation Cup, where the AJY invited the top team from half a dozen, 8 other leagues in the area, mostly non-Jewish leagues, therefore quite a high standard. They were all invited to take part in a cup knockout competition, and we won all our games, got through to the final, and our centre forward, who was brilliant all year, was great in the final. We went on to win 6-1 in the final, and the local newspaper had a big picture of us, and it's a picture of me with no beard and hair and everything. It was some time ago, as they say. And our club leader, after we finished the season, took us all out for a meal in a big hotel in the West End. I don't think any of us had been into a hotel like this on the Strand. I can't remember what it was. And we had a meal. So I played football until 19. I left because of the age requirement, and I then stayed on as a manager. And I started working with the minors section of the club. That was a section between 9 and 12, i.e. before you became a junior. And I worked initially with an Israeli called Josh. I learnt a lot from him over 1-2 years, and then he left to go back to Israel. And what we did on the Tuesdays and Thursdays was, in fact, to run a program for the boys between 8 and 12. So we had various different jobs to do. We had to also organise skeet weekends. I was a volunteer manager when we took 40 boys between 8 and 12 down to skeet for their weekend, because the minors had their weekends at skeet, the juniors had their weekends, the seniors had their weekends, and the old boys after 19 had their weekends. My job was, in fact, to run the activities, prepare the activities, organise paperwork that is necessary, apply to the association for registration for the football teams, apply to go on to tournaments, apply to do activities in the association's name. When Josh went back to Israel, I asked Yogi if I could take over as minors leader, and Yogi said yes. So I was minors leader in 1969, which is when I took the minors section of the summer camp, and that's where I met my wife Jenny. And I think I went on for a couple of years after, and then I wanted a change. And with Jenny coming on the scene, both of us then took up being managers for the seniors rather than the minors, and running senior weekends and so on down the skeet. I learned how to mix with people, how to be one of a team, how to be not in isolation. I learned how to manage. I learned how to organise. When I ran my own business, some of the things I did, if I think about it, I learned when I was 16 and 15 and 17 and 18 at the club. I didn't know it at the time, but I was learning things that later on, when I did, in fact, at the age of 32, 33, go self-employed and set up my own business, were very instrumental in making sure that I managed to make the business successful because of what I learned at the club. When I was a manager and I was looking after the minors, a close friend, Eric, decided that he would be writing and organising the show that we were going to put on the night we had the presentation of all the awards for members of the club. And he decided to put on a production of Oliver. And I'm one of those people who's not great at front of house, doing things, standing up. It's just not me. But he cajoled me, sticks out in my mind, doing the show that night. I think the major thing that made Brady successful when I was there, in the period that I was on the club, I suppose if you could put it down to anything, you put it down to Yogi. He was a sensational manager. He was brilliant. He knew how to help kids. He knew how to develop kids. He knew how to bring them on. He knew when to pull them back when they were getting a bit too leery. He had this knack of making everybody feel that they're part of the greatest thing that is out there. The main driving force of the club, the thing that made everybody want to go, and he was scrupulous in his requirement that you behaved yourself. When you're out there, if you were out in a team playing for Brady or doing something for Brady, you were representing the club, and it was important that you behaved yourself and you represented yourself in a way that Yogi would be happy. And you know, he lost his temper. He got annoyed, and 5 minutes afterwards, everybody was laughing at him, and he laughed with us because that was the way the man was. He was a brilliant youth leader, brilliant. I always felt fabulous at the club when I was a member, but it's only when I look back on it I realise how important it was in my life. Most of my closest friends are from Brady. 65 years we've been friends. The demise of youth clubs is a big loss, I think, to the country. Expanding the problem England's got at the moment with young children being overweight, the lack of sports facilities that the local government have sold off for housing or for development, whatever, is detrimental long term for the health of the youth of this country. Sport is part of a youth club, not all of it, because there are loads of other things that they can do if the youth system was reinstalled in this country. It is very, very difficult for children, especially in deprived areas, in estates where you've got 20 blocks of houses. And what are the children going to do in 20 blocks of houses when there's no football field, there's no sports area, there is nothing for them to do in the evening when they finish with school? The children must have a reason and the ability to let off steam when they've finished school. And becoming part of a youth club not only will be healthy, it will be healthy from a brain point of view. It would help them understand that you have to sometimes work in a group. It would teach them how to get on with somebody who they may not particularly like. It will make them new friends. It will give them, if the club is run properly, a feeling of being a member of something. I can tell you as a Brady boy that when we came up against other clubs, the Brady feeling came through strong and clear. And I think it's not available nowadays for children, and I think that is sad. On the one hand, I can see that it is because things have changed, the whole view of the way people are and the things that got available. Things that are available today were not available to me. When I was young, there was nothing for me to do. I didn't have a television at home. We were the first house in the road to have a television, and everybody in the road was excited. Not just me, everybody in the road. Just like we were the first house in the road to have a telephone. And that was, when the engineer came, people were standing out watching him fix the telephone. And from then on, if anybody had to make an urgent phone call, they knocked at our door. And we were as poor of it as everybody else. But we had no other things. From a point of view of a child, we had no other facilities for us to do anything. And if it wasn't for the youth club, I'm not sure what would happen to me. One thing I do believe, if it wasn't for Brady, I would not have taken the path that I did take. And I don't think I would have done as well, in my own limited way, from a work, family perspective. I've always said it was a very, 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 very important thing for me when I was a kid, when I look back, about how it has helped to shape my life